Traffic has been one of the main problems of big cities for the last 100 years. At first they tried to solve it by adding more traffic lines for cars. Also some cities even demolished blocks for intersections and, as a result, they got more cars and traffic jams. After that, clever mayors stopped trying to make the city friendly for drivers and started investing in public transport, pedestrian and cycling infrastructure. But redesigning traffic lines for trams and cyclists or introducing paid parking are very unpopular measures. That's why many mayors are trying to sit on two chairs and make public transport and not offer it drivers. This is often exploited by some companies offering innovation solutions to poof and everything moves without traffic jams. Something like a pill for traffic jams. Today I'm going to talk about the most popular examples of transportation innovations that work only in the minds of bureaucrats and lobbyists, from the roleplay metro to Elon Musk's Hyperloop. But before we begin, I want to remind you a very important rule of YouTube. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us make new videos. The first one is the Tightrun. A few years ago, a Chinese company offering to combine the advantages of buses and trams. They wanted to replace the classic tram with rails to a big bus. This bus would have cameras that read their marks and it would move along a set trajectory. In theory, such transport has high capacity, moves along a set way with minimal dynamic dimensions. But at the same time, it would save money for railway construction. In reality, this idea has several weaknesses. First one, marking can get erased, and in city with snowy climates, transportation will be an unavailable part of the year. The second one is the computer vision and algorithm can be hacked or a technical error can occur. Physical tracks are without these problems. And if you let big buses in the city, you still need physical separation from cars to work perfectly. The left side of the road along the dividing line is the best for that. In other words, the street would still need to be reconstructed. Otherwise, they will be parking on their markings or cars coming in and out of the yards will interfere with transport. But if reconstruction is necessary, it won't be that much of a problem to lay the same rails. It is also important to remember that the tram is eco-friendly not only because of electric motors, but also because of iron wheels and rails. It doesn't create rubber dust from the tire rubbing. In addition, you can plant grasses between the rails, which improves the microclimate of the city. When such a bus still needs asphalt or concrete, that would have to change regularly. Another example is the ropeway. More exactly, the use of regular ropeways in urban areas as public transportation. In general, cable cars are nothing new. It's used everywhere in the mountains and sometimes it's really part of the urban infrastructure. For example, when the geological conditions are difficult, large rivers, differences in level and other reasons why it's difficult to build a classic bridge. This is not a problem with technology, but with the use of ropeways. To use them in the mountains is normal and correct, but in the cities instead of buses or trams is stupid. Why? Because the capacity of the existing ropeways is not more than 2,000 people per hour. The trolley bus or bus routes carry up to 7,000 passengers an hour, or the modern tram can carry up to 30,000 people per hour. There are also other problems. Everyone who has been in the mountains and used the ropeway knows that if there are more than 20 people, then the whole system immediately shuts down and large lines appear. People spend a lot of time to getting on and off these cars. Boarding is also uncomfortable, for example, people with disabilities. The main problem with safety. Still no one knows how to normally evacuate people from their cabins when an accident happens. And if the system breaks down or stops for any reason, people can hang in these cabins for hours. Also, huge poles in the middle of streets and parks will disrupt the skyline. If anyone ever let something like that to the old center of the city, it will be a crime against history. But your likes on this video can help people see it right now and help save our cities. Now let's talk about the monorail. This is not exactly an example of fiction. In fact, there are some cities where monorails walk and carry people, but that doesn't negate the two main problems of such system. First one, monorails have extremely complicated point system, which make it very problematic to manage different routes through the same station. A classic railroad or tram doesn't have these problems. Different roads can pass through one stop, which can cover almost the whole city. The second one is monorail systems are extremely expensive to build and use compared to classic rail transport. Also, there are problems with trains for them. In the world, there are a few such systems and almost no competition between producers. As a result, we get a monopoly or inability to replace our own equipment, as it happened in Moscow. Besides the fact that such a system is unflexible and have a difficult infrastructure, there is also the problem of capacity. Often a regular bus can be more efficient than a monorail. That's why monorail systems in the world are most often used not as public urban transport, but it is used as a sightseeing transport in parks or as a shuttle train in airports, because it's important to separate the traffic flows and keep the passengers for technical services at ground level. Now let's stop with the unsuccessful experiments and start with unsci-fi. Let's start with the string transport, or as it has recently been called, Skyway. Here the idea is similar to the monorail, but instead of one rail, there are strings where small capsules are moved. I saw it's not really public transportation, it's private, but some people don't even realize that. Luckily, there are no working systems yet. The first attempt to run a test site was in Belarus. The most interesting news for now is about the accident with the capsule and tractor. After the failure in Belarus, the authors went to the United Arab Emirates. Here they got a test launch site in 2018, and that's all. At some moment, the idea even turned from a transport scheme into a financial one. They offered to invest in the development of string transport, and in return they promised shares in one of the companies that do it. They also promised to share the profits if it will happen. Okay, what about buses over cars? The developers assured that this construction would run on rails between the car lines and wouldn't be bothered by traffic jams. They called it the Transit Explorer bus. In the computer simulation, everything looks perfect. Below, there are lots of lanes and all the drivers are happy. Above them, a bus is passed overhead. The authors promised to build 185 kilometers of road for the bus. Beijing was even getting ready to build it. Investors from Brazil, France, India and Indonesia were waiting for the prototype. But simulation and reality are two different things. Let's start with the main thing – trucks and special equipment. Almost every city on the planet had problems with intuitive drivers who didn't notice the high limit in front of tunnels or bridges. For example, in St. Petersburg there is a bridge of Subitli, where almost every week some truck gets stuck. This bridge even has its own social networks. Needless to say, in case of an accident between a truck and such bus, there will be a lot of victims, and also how to evacuate them from the level of second or third floors. The other point about the organization of traffic and parking. This system will only work if traffic rules are absolutely respected. Otherwise, someone will crash into a bus or just park on the rails. Real life is more difficult than cartoons. And the most importantly, it turned out to be a scam. No one was going to produce these buses. The only prototype wasn't taken away after the presentation from the test stand. It turned out that the person who was presented as the chief engineer of the project didn't even have a secondary education. People who invest money in the creation of this bus didn't receive any financial guarantees. Creators are just disappeared. There is another similar proposal, but here the buses have to move like motorcycles, with only two fulcrums. Looks like the authors really like the segways. That's why they decided to make public transport based on a similar technology. But there are more disadvantages than even in the last concept, because in an accident situation, this construction would be able to stand up. In order to lift or push it in case of minimal damage, you would have to organize a whole rescue operation with blocking of streets. Now let's talk about the start of this video. Elon Musk has suggested running passenger carriage in vacuum tunnels at high speed. But there are three great problems. First one, building such system in compact city is very expensive. In other words, it's a metro system. So far, Musk's companies haven't been able to reduce the cost of building and servicing such systems. Second, because of the high speed, very smooth turns are required, even smoother than on high-speed railroads. In a city environment, one such turn can stretch over several areas. And for high speeds, the station must have a long distance, otherwise the carriage simply won't have time to accelerate and slow down. One station per large city is unlikely to save you from traffic jams. And the last one, and the most important, how do you evacuate people in danger? Because there is no air in the tunnels. Unfortunately, there are no answers for these questions, and hardly you will ever be able to use a Hyperloop. Also, it's a working concept for cargo transport, but the cost of transportation will be extremely expensive. You can also think of Musk's project with a tunnel for Tesla cars, but even during the test run, there was a traffic jam. Unfortunately, mathematics and geometry couldn't be better. So, here my short list of stupid transport innovations is finished. If you know any other examples, please share them in the comments. If we get a lot of them, we'll do a second part. You can also subscribe to the channel and like this video. It's very important. Love cities and see you in the next videos. Bye!